From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for December 16th, 2025. Central Committee Meeting of Parliament regarding the Initiative National Ordinance amending the admission and expulsion from Sint Maarten. MP Omar Otley extended to the Member of Parliament on December 16th, 2025.
We have here the amendment to the National Ordinance regulating admissions to and expulsion from St. Maarten in connection with the expansion of the categories of persons who are eligible for admissions by operation of law. We move to the agenda. We will discuss what is the problem, the solution, the situation, analyze real-life examples, current legislation, the proposed solution, amendment overview, and key remarks from the advisory board. So I'll start by saying this. How many of us know persons that we literally grew up with, went to school with, and they were born right here to later find out that they don't have official residency? I have experienced this, especially during election, where you would be surprised that people tell you, hey, I would vote for you, but I can't. And your remark would be, but all the time you hear, you don't have permit, you don't have residency. It's the reality of what we face. Too often, our young people then are limited to higher education opportunities that they can pursue due to documentation issues. Whether it's being able to study abroad, the Netherlands, America, whatever it may be. It also hinders them from finding proper work. During our trip to the Netherlands, the Prime Minister made a presentation and said 42% of our population during the Inter-Expo Congress is limited to a high school education, 42%. Now, while this may reflect on our education situation in St. Maarten, a lot of it also has to do with this main factor. Our students are going to school, and some of them are demotivated because they can't go to Holland, Tallahassee, wherever it may be with their friends and continue their education. Granted, there is USM here, but there are those who just enter the job market. This also affects our job market, as we did a program, pilot program, when I was Minister of VSA with the Minister of TEAT and the Ministry of Justice, where we realized that persons now not having official residency force employers, and the tedious process in the government force employers to hire black. It affects our income, our tax income, it affects our immigration, and as I stated, our average education level. What is the current situation? So we have undocumented children born in St. Maarten, minors who were born here of foreign parents and stay here without permission. Then you have undocumented children born here are vulnerable because they do not have equal access to public service despite government measures to make such service available to these children, such as stated, the education. But most important, it is the right of the child to identity, self-worth, and a sense of belonging. The UNICEF study shows 20% of our population, of our youth, of undocumented children of St. Maarten. And in that 20%, there are percentages that were born here. So we have kids that are born here and considered undocumented. When asked the Minister of Education how many students are currently born here but are undocumented during the budget debate, it was again indicated data. Data is the problem in St. Maarten. So they said data is still pending. However, the preliminary data regarding the number of students currently registered undocumented in the public school are as followed. MLK 60, Linacana 44, Ruby La Vega 44, St. Maarten Vocational 36, Mary Genevieve de Weaver 128, Orania School 43, Prince William Alexander 14, equating to 369 students. It was also stated that while these students are listed as undocumented, some of them may be just because the parents, again, have not sent in the proper information.
Minister of Finance Marinka Gums is pleased to announce that a total of CGand 407,600 will be paid out to civil servants in December 2025 as a result of the successful first edition of the Government Savings Plan, introduced earlier this year. The Savings Plan was officially launched in January 2025, following a direct exchange with civil servants during one of the Minister's Finance Friday walk-in sessions. It was during one such session that the idea of a voluntary savings initiative for civil servants was raised, discussed, and ultimately developed into policy. The police force of St. Martin, KPSM, is investigating an incident that occurred just before 3:30 p.m. on Front Street during a routine police patrol. While on patrol, officers observed a dark grey Changan vehicle occupied by 4 individuals, consisting of 3 males and 1 female. The vehicle was stopped for control. During the control, one of the male passengers attempted to flee the scene. He was pursued, later apprehended, and arrested on Back Street by responding officers. While officers were engaged with the remaining 3 occupants who stayed at the vehicle, an unknown male, later identified as the owner of the vehicle, approached, entered the vehicle, removed what appeared to be a firearm, and fled the area via the boardwalk. On December 15, 2025, a public meeting of Parliament regarding several question hours from MP Doran, directed to Minister Grisha Haley-Martin regarding the reconstruction of the Phillipsburg marketplace and support to displaced vendors.
Madam Chair, I requested this question hour because the marketplace affects real people and because the Parliament already took a clear decision during the budget debate in terms of a motion that I brought earlier this year. The intention behind that motion was simple. While the marketplace is being built, vendors should not be left to carry the burden alone, especially since the temporary location that they were moved to does not allow them to earn anywhere near what they earned before. In September, I followed up with the execution of the motion. Specifically, the motion called for vendor relief in the form of a stipend. Taking the minimum wage into consideration, in the response of the minister indicated that the stipend was not implemented, but an alternative form of relief was being developed in close collaboration with the Ministry of Finance. In that same response, the minister also indicated that the Parliament could expect a meeting in November to receive an update on the construction and related matters. Since that meeting never took place, Madam Chair, I felt compelled and I also found it necessary to formally request a question hour. This meeting is therefore about clarity. It's about understanding what relief is actually being applied and how it works in practice, and also truly get effective results in terms of relief for the vendors, Madam Chair. I'll go through a brief timeline. August 2024, 14th, the minister had a groundbreaking and indicated that next week the work would start. In January 27, 2025, the construction would start this week. June 20th, 2025, the construction will start soon. August 18th, 2025, in 6 to 8 months, this will be completed. November 5th, the project remains firmly on track. Madam Chair, a couple months ago, I started an excavator moving dirt from the back to the front to the back, and that has been about 4 months since then. Therefore, Madam Chair, I believe I'm begging the minister, by extension the government, to work on some sort of stipend and relief because these people did not ask to be in the position that they're in.
First question, first of the 15 questions. You recently stated publicly that the marketplace project is firmly on track, and on track with which timeline and which specific milestone are currently being met. When I stated that the marketplace project is firmly on track, I was referring to the procedural path. The milestones currently are as follows: completion and approval of the final design in consultation with the co-financier, presentation of that design to the vendors with positive feedback, and receipt of the contractor's finalization of the bill of quantities. So when I stated that the project is on track, I meant that it is advancing step by step along the procedural path with design approval secured, vendor engagement completed, and financial review now underway. In your written response to Parliament, you noted that a firm completion date cannot be provided at this time. How does the ministry reconcile this with your statement during the November 5th Council of Ministers press briefing that the project is firmly on track? When I stated that during the November 5th press briefing that the marketplace project is firmly on track, I referred to the fact that the project is advancing in the procedural steps under the FIDIC Yellow Book framework. Several of those steps were referred to in my previous answer, and at the time, in my written response to Parliament, I noted that a firm completion date cannot be yet provided. This is because a timeline for construction depends on the outcome of various other administrative procedural steps that form part of the overall project. Therefore, the statement the project is firmly on was merely based on terms of process and milestones. What has the preparatory construction phase, including filling, leveling, and compaction, when was it officially completed? The preparatory construction phase, including filling, leveling, and compaction, was officially completed at the end of August 2025. As mentioned during one of my previous meetings in Parliament, the additional requirements of the soil investigation and stabilization measures extended the preparatory stage, and the Department of New Works within the Ministry of VRAMI instructed the contractor to do said works. On what specific date is the foundation phase scheduled to begin? At this time, a specific date of the foundation phase has not yet been set. The contractor has indicated, however, that once the revised bill of quantities is reviewed and accepted, the project can start in January 2026 based on the proposed schedule, and foundation works works would begin immediately following the contract amendment and mobilization. Question 5, what construction milestone have been established by the project management team, including foundation, superstructure, roofing, utilities, and finishing? Please present this information in a timeline. The contractor has provided a work schedule that sets out the major construction milestones. These include foundation phase, superstructure, roofing, utilities, and fishing, etc. The contractor has also indicated that the full construction cycle is expected to take approximately 216 days, which is just over 7 months once the project restarts. The complete written schedule will be shared with Parliament in Q1 of 2026 so that members can review the timeline in full, and I will return to present this in person thereafter. The ministry referenced an independent project firm reviewing the contract's submission. Can the ministry clarify the scope of work reporting structure assigned to this firm and indicate whether the identity of the firm and any related documentation can be provided confidentially to Parliament, to the members of Parliament? The independent project management firm engaged for the marketplace reconstruction project is Angelique Properties BV, with the full acknowledgement of the Ministry of VRAMI. The firm's scope of services includes contract administration, including the review and approval of drawings prior to submissions to VRAMI, assessment of material submittals and variation, interim payment certificates, technical and quality oversight through weekly site inspections, commissioning and handover, health, safety, and environmental monitoring in accordance with the FIDIC Yellow Book, and a review of the bill of quantities, including advice on cost implications. Angelique Property BV reports directly to the Ministry of TIAT, and the documentation that can be provided to Parliament on a confidential basis is the assignment letter, which I think I already submitted to members of Parliament, through you, Madam Chair Lady. Question 7, the Ministry confirmed the existence of a verified list of displaced vendors. How many vendors are there on the verified list, and what eligible criteria were applied? On the list, we have a total of 54 vendors, and they have been categorized in 3 areas. Area 1, which is Old Fire Station between Back Street and Canagita Street. Area 2, behind the courthouse between the Front Street and Back Street. And Area 3, the Great Bay area, more so along the boardwalk. We cross-referenced this list internally with the Department of IETA, Economic Licenses and Receivers Office, and before and again after the vendors were displaced. The total amount that are displaced right now is R33. So with reference to the criteria, one of the criteria that applied that the vendors must have is a license to operate in Area 1, Old Fire Station, which is between Back Street to Street, which is clearly stated on their respective licenses. And that, again, like I stated before, is a total of 33. Question 8. The Ministry indicated that vendors fees will be waived during the reconstruction period. Can the minister confirm whether these fee waivers have already commenced? And if not, when will they begin? Yes, the fee waiver process has already commenced. Question 9, does the ministry intend to apply the fee waiver retroactively? Specifically, will vendors be refunded to credited for fees already paid during the period they were displaced, or will the waiver apply only moving forward? Yes, the fee waivers will be applied retroactively. Upon research with the receiver's office, we can confirm, however, that the vendors that have been displayed did not pay their fees during the time or date.
Your social and health insurance is your social and health insurance.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, Com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
Willemstad, members of Parliament expressed strong concern on Tuesday over rising regional tensions and their potential impact on Curaçao during a debate held as part of the budget discussions on the portfolio of general affairs of Prime Minister Gilmar Pisas. Across party lines, lawmakers made it clear that the government can count on broad parliamentary support in seeking greater influence within the Kingdom of the Netherlands on matters that directly affect the island. A recurring theme throughout the debate was the view that Curaçao should not be sidelined when decisions are made that have immediate consequences for its security, sovereignty, and stability. Opposition MP Susie Camelia Roma, ManPin, rejected the notion that Curaçao has little or no voice in these matters. She argued that the island does have options and should actively use them. According to Camelia Roma, Curaçao can and should align itself with Aruba and jointly engage with the Dutch Ministers of Defence and Foreign Affairs to convey clear boundaries. She stressed that Curaçao must articulate what it finds acceptable and unacceptable, particularly in the current geopolitical climate. She also announced her intention to work toward a motion of support for the government, noting that the Prime Minister is operating in a difficult context and deserves the full backing of Parliament. In her view, the Netherlands is likely to be receptive to Curaçao. We will have more on the House of Parliament will sit in a public meeting on December 15, 2025. MP Lacroze directed to the Prime Minister of General Affairs, Dr. Luc Mercelina, regarding Sint Maarten National Strategy for Fuel Diversification, LNG Transition, Public Utilities, and the implementation of community benefits.
The shareholder will, at this time, not impose a specific requirement or deadline to NVGB to analyze the feasibility of LNG. Priority will be given to actions that are needed to stabilize the electricity supply to our people and businesses. Question 7. What findings and recommendations were provided to Parliament regarding LNG conversion, and what actions have been taken on those recommendations? The answer is I have previously referred to the Least Cost Power Development Plan, the PDP, prepared by Energynautics, which contains relevant analysis on fuel option for power generation. While the current diesel generators are technically capable of operating on natural gas, a transition to NLG was not evaluated as viable due to the significant capital investment required, particularly for infrastructure and NLG regasification facilities. Question 8. Has the government approved the establishment of the joint venture between the Harbour Group, GEBE, and the government for NLG procurement, storage, and distribution? The answer is no. The government is not considering the establishment of such a joint venture at this particular time. A decision of that magnitude requires a more comprehensive and compelling analysis. Based on the current findings, particularly the LNG-related results presented in the Energynautics report, there are no sufficiently convincing arguments to justify pursuing this venture at this stage, as it would be less efficient and more costly under the existing assumptions. Question 9. What safeguards are being put in place to ensure that the cost per kilowatt hour under the new fuel regime does not exceed the prevailing ceiling throughout the Caribbean region? The answer to question 9 is NBGB has undertaken a comprehensive tariff study to ensure tariffs remain competitive and affordable. The NVGEBE tariff study analysis recommends safeguards, including cost-reflective tariff design, benchmarking against Curaçao, Aruba, Saba, and St. Eustatius, a monthly fuel class adjustment to track fuel market changes, and progressive block tariffs to protect low-income households and promote fairness. Government is also in the process of mandating BTP to regulate the electricity tariffs to ensure these are cost-based. There we will look at the local cost, but both fixed cost and the variables cost will all be evaluated. Question number 10. Has the concessionaire agreed to the required contributions for public street lighting and solar rechargeable equipment at key sporting facilities? And if so, what is the implementation timeline? Question 11 also, I add to it, and I will give answer to all three questions. Question 11 is what support has been secured for strengthening independent operation and resilience at the Roll Sport Complex, Jose Lake, John Cooper, Link Sport Fields, and Phillipsburg Sports Auditorium? And the other question is, have any generators or supplemental equipment been donated or allocated to these facilities as instructed in the motion? The answer to question 10, 11, and 12 are the following. The status of discussions and implementation regarding contribution, concessions, and equipment for the sporting facilities is as follows. Prior to the passing of Mr. Washington, the Minister of Education, Culture, Youth, and Sport, Mrs. Melissa Gums, was in conversation with Mr. Washington regarding potential concessions and projects related to the schools and sporting facilities. However, since his passing, no further discussion have been taken place between the Ministry and NVGB regarding support measure, reduced rates for sporting facilities, or the agreement required to advance the matters referenced in these questions. Question 13, can the government provide Parliament with a regular progress report required under the motion, including reasonable outcome timelines and milestones? The answer on question 13 is the current focus of government is on grid stabilization and consistent provision of electricity. Therefore, no progress report as required under the motion have been compiled today. Question 14, what are the next steps and phase plans for regional leadership, transitional implementation, and community benefit associated with the nation's shift towards LNG and broader energy sector reform?
you SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your MySZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SXM, yeah. Your social health insurances.
24/7 TV programming on www.stmartinmediacenter.com, SXM Daily News, PBS NewsHour, Now You Know, com programs, documentary, entertainment, sports events, Saturday children's hours, religion programs, and movies. Click on SXM TV broadcast to see your favorite programs.
News from Jamaica Police. Fatally shoot. 3 men in Rose Heights, St. James. Reporting by TVJ News.
To a developing story now. The police fatally shot 3 men in Rose Heights, St. James today. According to reports, the police intercepted a Toyota Hiace bus transporting 5 men in the community. The men reportedly fired at the lawmen and a shootout ensued. 3 of the suspects were shot while 2 escaped. It's further understood that 2 firearms were seized. Police sources have revealed that the men are members of a robbery syndicate that have been targeting businesses in St. James.
Addressed to the nation by the Honourable Mia Amor Motley, SC, MP, Prime Minister of Barbados on December 14, 2025. She says it is a necessary and transparent tool to protect jobs, attract investment, and strengthen the economy in an increasingly uncertain global environment.
While our parliamentary proceedings are public and accessible, I fully accept that it is not reasonable to expect every citizen to watch Parliament, to read legislation, or to decipher financial language on their own. We expect that of those who really belong to the financial literacy class, but not everyone. If we have not explained something carefully enough, then it is our responsibility, and certainly my responsibility, to come and explain it plainly, directly, and respectfully. And this is what I'm doing now. The Economic Diversification and Growth Fund Bill has been designed and will be implemented with a clear purpose: to protect and to grow jobs, to enhance foreign and domestic investment, and to grow our economy for all Barbadians, especially in a very uncertain global environment. Much has been said publicly about this bill. Some of it has been emotional, and yes, some of it has been political. But I do not dismiss emotion, and I do not dismiss concern. Once we slow the conversation down and look carefully at the facts, a clearer and more balanced picture emerges. Let me start with where we came from. And I must do so because context is always crucial, not just in this matter. Under the previous administration, foreign international business companies were taxed at rates as low as 2.5% and declining to 1.5%, while local companies here in Barbados were taxed at 25% when we came to office in 2018. That is a fact. That system was judged by international regulators to be unacceptable given the ring fencing we provided in favor of foreign companies. In other words, there were 2 different regimes for foreign and local companies. More importantly, it therefore placed Barbadian businesses at a severe disadvantage in their own country. We corrected that and removed the disparity between the treatment of local and foreign companies with respect to taxation. We told you then that all business is local and international, and that we do not have the luxury of separating the 2. But we were able to create a separate regime for small businesses, and small businesses today are taxed at 5.5%, and other companies, whether local or foreign, are taxed at 9%. In addition, from the next financial year, 2026 to 2027, we expect that there will be a number of companies whose revenue exceeds 750 million euros, who will be taxed at 15%, which is the global minimum tax that the OECD prescribed. If we do not do so, the country in which they operate businesses will have the right to tax any difference between what they pay here below 15% and the actual 15%. Accordingly, foreign companies now pay more, not less, than they did before we came to office. and some will even more pay more in the next financial year, as I just indicated. That is a fact. And that reform has brought in substantially more corporate tax revenue for Barbados, starting last year and continuing this year. Revenue which we have already begun to share with the people of this country, and indeed to do the things to make this country stronger. Revenue that helps protect our social services, our infrastructure, and indeed our stability and platform for prosperity. But my friends, that reform also created a new challenge. If we stop there, if we raise taxes but do nothing else, we risk losing existing investors, as has happened with the USA market in the last 2 years, and we have and will become unattractive to new ones without more. Our tax base becomes very narrow and very tenuous, even though we are earning more revenue. In other words, a smaller number of taxpayers, even though you're earning significantly more money because of the corporate tax reform of 18 months ago. This, my friends, is not sustainable for Barbados in the medium term. We need to encourage more companies with economic substance, local or foreign, to be operating here and to be creating jobs and to be earning foreign exchange and, yes, paying taxes. For you see, when substantive economic investment comes, we get jobs. And when those investors leave or shut down locally, those jobs go. Foreign exchange dries up and government revenue shrinks. These are all the facts of the lived Caribbean experience. We saw it with Intel here in Barbados when they closed in the early 1980s, and so many others. In fact, recently, in 2022, we saw it with TT Electronics, who left our shores, and so went the jobs, the foreign exchange, and the tax revenue from them. And in that case, it was approximately 350 jobs. Imagine the economic activity that they spawned locally from those 350 Bajans working.
From the island, Sint Maarten, this is SXM Daily News for December 16th, 2025.